Hey Fiberista, I'm a bad vlogger today. Actually yesterday I failed to pull together a video for this morning, so I'm doing this one really quick. Here it goes. Hey Fiberistas, okay, so it's Monday morning and I wanted to share with you an excellent question that I got the other day from Betsy. So Betsy writes, I just ordered my first loom and it looks like the one you're working with. I was wondering if the weavings can be stitched together side by side to make a bigger panel. Betsy, yes, they actually can. I'm going to reference the weavers from Guatemala. Now, if you Google Guatemalan weaving, you'll see that they primarily use a backstrap loom. So their weavings come out pretty thin. To get wider pieces of fabric, as they stitch these strips together. Mostly Guatemalan fabric, you'll recall them being the really super brightly colored kind of stripes with little bits of patterns, stripes and black. Usually bright yellow, bright red, blue. For example, if, I've got this little piece of weaving and I have this little piece of weaving as well. Yes, stitching them together side by side to make a bigger piece of fabric is going to be awesome. Now bear in mind that chances are you're going to get these sections that don't match up, and I think that is actually really cool. It kind of gives some interest as you're trying to make some wider panels. As opposed to normally how you would stitch when you're sewing quilt pieces or some kind of garment, how you usually put the right sides together and stitch 5/8 of an inch in with a seam allowance. I wouldn't do that. I would treat these more like you would treat putting together crochet blocks, and I would do it more of a side by side and do a mattress stitch going across the seams. What this is doing is, because with this kind of weaving you're going to have a lot of bulk, so if you do something that's more like a mattress stitch when you're putting these pieces side by side, it's going to get rid of some of that bulk. If you have to get on the sewing machine to do it, as opposed to having the two right sides together and stitching like this, so then you have, when you open it up, you have this big bulky seam. What I would do is just overlap the sections there and run, and just not even very much. I would do, if you can do 1/8 of an inch, great. That's kind of hard to pin and sew. 1/4 of an inch at the most this way. But honestly, what I would prefer is if you can, to hand sew those seams together using a mattress stitch. However, if when you're doing those seams together and you come across this big bulky section like this, where the end of your fabric's going to have a super bulky yarn, I would outright just skip it. I would, stitch, mattress stitch this seam down to this bulky spot, and then I would just go over it and start back up. And chances are in this kind of weaving, you're not going to have like a huge bunch of this bulky, just a little section. So it's just not going to matter if you do a mattress seam through here, or maybe there's a way that you can go back and just tack a little bit of, to the fabric next to it. But that's how I would treat putting these panels together. By doing it this way, you're not going to get this big heavy seam that's going to, because when you're working with this bulky of fabric, by doing a mattress stitch to get these seams together is gonna keep the drape of this weaving fluid. It's, if you start to overlap it and do like a traditional sewn seam, then it's gonna really stiffen up that edge. Anyway, so I hope that helps. Do Google the Guatemalan weavings, and that'll kind of give you a little insight as to how they put together those smaller bits into a larger panel. So that's it for today, you guys. Have a good day. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.